but then I so there was no chance in hell you were going to be there.
Indeed, but also it was Monday, Thursday, so I'll see you Thursday. But yeah, I didn't, yeah.
You may if I don't fall asleep at our table.
Where is the?
Then we'll see you, we just may not see us.
Hi, Tara.
Well, it's at the hockey event that work on the same table. You don't have this.
Well, I think I do because that's where Robert Morris.
Oh, that's right. I didn't think.
Wait, are you talking about? I several times, so no, I don't know which one.
It's not like you, that's professional.
Oh, okay. I don't think it was.
Oh, I love you every day. Come on.
We're good. See you guys. We can't see too, so we can-
Not flat, that's Philadelphia.
Oh, how do we know when somebody wants to talk?
We'll have to-
Because Cindy Rice-
Oh, no. What's wrong now?
They can see us, but we can't see them.
Oh.
Basically, we just don't have it up on this monitor, but we're being broadcast.
Is that right down?
Can they,
that's not right
can we
down
be able
by
to hear them though?
Steelers and the Pirates?
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
That
of where
might be
it's
a
at.
problem.
Because you
We
get
have
the
post-
Steelers and the Pirates. And
Post-
then, you know, you have the River and.
Okay, this isn't the one I was looking for, but.
I mean, I can bring it up on this computer.
Yeah, anyway.
We all have
always say
them.
that it's right next door to that stadium. So it's.
You can see them out front.
We drive in.
Yeah, do you want us to just move up?
You can move out front.
Oh, we can see them.
I don't.
There we go.
Oh, we can see them.
Till it's good time to go.
Yay,
I
man.
don't- I would drive off.
When all else fails,
Crazy.
check to see if it's plugged in.
It really is.
So it's hard to get- like I
Let's
said,
have John
concert's right
talk so
next
we can
door.
hear him. Oh, he wasn't gonna be here.
He's not gonna be here for the regular. meeting.
Oh,
This time,
Hey, John, can you hear us all right?
Yeah.
I can, loud and clear, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
She was going to go.
we
All right.
planned.
all right. It is 6:03 PM, so we will get started with our pre-meeting. Sorry for the 3-minute delay due to technical difficulties once again. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Howell,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry, Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
all commission members present.
And I'll turn it over to you, City Administrator Greg Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first item for discussion tonight is Parks and Recreation, by which I mean, would we again like to have Parks and Recreation Department? Michelle, if I could get the screen share up for this item. So this is section 62(2) of the city code, hopefully to return soon. There we go. Which defines our Department of Parks and Recreation, continues in the city code to this day, even though back after the last Great Recession, due to the extreme budgetary constraints at that time, we did away with this department, and most particularly the portion of it that relates to recreation. Formerly had a director and various levels of intermediate supervision in the department, all of which were done away with, and the department was combined with engineering services, as you know. And this is certainly not meant to be an indictment of how the department's operating, because I think Matt has done an outstanding job keeping the department running, and especially keeping it on a strong financial footing, but we are on a good financial footing right now. And I wanted to open up a discussion with you as to whether or not it's something you would like to explore for us to go back to having a separate department and a separate director for that activity. A director is, when you talk about salary and benefits, about $110,000, $120,000 item. The rest of the department sort of exists under Matt's direction right now. Obviously, we don't do all that much with recreation programming anymore. I viewed that as something of a lost opportunity for us as I've kind of learned about things. We have partnerships with the Y and the schools, which are beneficial to us, but we lack any sort of coordination with those efforts. And we really haven't had much seat at the table in terms of selecting what programs are chosen, what we spend our money on, and making sure that those resources are known to and available to our residents generally, other than those that are in the school district's programming already. So, and then this year with the pool and discussions we've had around lack of capital planning for the future of the pool, just the idea came up. Well, and Commissioner Watson and I were talking at one point about this as to whether or not you want somebody who comes to work every day and what they think about is parks and recreation. Right? I mean, just like when I was also the community development director, that's a job I have a great deal of experience doing, obviously, but when I'm the city administrator as well, I don't come to work every day thinking about community development. I have other things to think about. So if you really want somebody who's all in for Parks and Rec, then, in my opinion, the way to do that is to have a person who's solely devoted to that function, as director of this department, that city code still envisions that we would have. So that's the discussion item that I'd like to identify for you, and very interested in hearing Commissioner's thoughts on that.
Could the fee pay for any of the parks part of the salary?
Some portion of it, in general, it can pay for wages that are related to parks, not fringe benefits, as I understand it. That's something that we'd have to drill down on in terms of numbers. But yes, there would be money that could come in from the fee estate as I see it, and just say you have an idea of the situation with utilization of fee estate funds. For probably the last 10 years, there's been about $90,000 a year that is distributed. In other words, we're entitled to take it because it's part of the percentage. In essence, we live off the interest on the fee estate for simplicity purposes. And so every year we get about $90,000 more than we spend of that money. And that goes into a fund, and it's there, it's available, and it's grown to almost $1 million now. It is distributed but unused. So it's available for use. We have not used it today.
So essentially, we're leaving fee estate wages on the table. Sometimes.
Well, fee
Or
estate
fee
money
estate monies that
could
could be go.
in part be used for wages.
This is something in these top two items on the pre-meeting are two things that are very important to me. I know I've got a very short horizon, but I think these two things are two things that I'd like to see addressed in some capacity before my term is done. You said it, Greg. We have a passion for our parks. I'm more interested in starting with a parks director than the recreation component of it, though. There's a lot. If you talk about the scheduling and management of parks, park space, that's part of it. So with monies being invested in the trail, with possible discussion, with a discussion coming up about Bone Pool, with an active Little League, with park conditions as discussion items amongst the community, the time is now to have somebody owning the parks. And I think that it's an integral part of our identity as a city. And I think that we're missing that component of our wheel. This is in absolutely no way, shape, or form a discussion about anybody's current performance or anybody's past performance. Matt being the most recent one of his role, of leading parks, rather lifting up or a greater emphasis on how important parks are to our identity as a city.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the parks, we used to have a director, Justin Combs. But we also had former engineer Kristen Bauer. So they were both in unison as department heads, and then they ran those two particular departments. Well, Justin Combs went to other opportunities in Kansas. Kristen Bauer leaves the city, and then the former engineer took over both, was a parks engineering director. I've always said that was a lot for one person. I think that all of us have gotten emails or people that have came to the community that have complained about some of the conditions of the parks. And I'll just be honest, that it's when we talk about right siding, this is so important to the quality of life of our citizens that the financial situation we're in now, like Commissioner Watson said, now is the time to strike. I think that having some sole leadership directly dedicated to that particular department is important to me, because I hear about a lot about the condition of our park. So I don't think it was ever designed in the city's history, ever designed to have one director do both. I think that you get better services, you get more oversight if they're separate. Again, that's nothing to do with Matt. I know Matt has a pulse on it, and got his hand on it. But again, like Greg just said, it's like, he's coming in, he's got a lot to worry about, streets, I mean, there's a lot of different moving pieces I'm sure he has, not counting the parts. So that was one of the concerns. Are we setting people up for failure? And I don't want to see that happen because I keep our young talent with us. I know the previous Parks and Engineering Director, great guy, smart guy. But we were sitting here in a budget meeting and he forgot the bill for recycling for 6 months. And I had a problem with that. I said, listen, that's our money. That's not good enough because I just missed that. It's not good enough for me. And so having somebody solely dedicated to both those departments, I think gives us better service and better results. So.
I feel like if we're gonna move forward with the Parks Director, which I think is a good idea, I think that we are saying that we're gonna move ahead with a recreation department too. To just get a Parks Director and then not move ahead with the recreation department is kind of missing the boat. And I like how we've been partnering with the schools some. I think it should be more the city and the schools and not so much the YMCA. But I think by getting that park director, we're saying, okay, we're going to move forward, and in the real near future, we are going to have a recreation department also.
You said something about like the social and the soul of the city. I think it's important to talk about recreation too, because I grew up going to the playgrounds at the schools where the city provided someone that worked at the playgrounds, and we colored and we did all these things, and we played pickup ball games and stuff like that. So that was part of the Recs department, and we went to Bone Pool all the time. So when we talk about the youth in our community and growing the youth in our community and providing stable environments for the youth in our community, I think the Recs department is going to be a huge piece of that. And parks, I mean, if we can cover the part for parks with the fee estate, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But I can't see moving forward without recreation. I think that's an important piece to the community.
I think that's something for if we move forward in this director role, them to explore, because there's other organizations have established identities in our city, and let's be efficient about it. I mean, Adrian and Lenawee County is really good at starting nonprofits. How many of them overlap? Lots. So let's be wise in that selection. Do we and be complementary to the other programs that are already in place versus competing with them. And so, I think recreation can take a lot of different looks and facets that would be important and that would really add value in quality of life, to use one of Commissioner Help's terms, to our city. But we have to be purposeful about it. Let's not start up a basketball league just because we used to have basketball when Adrian Public might be covering basketball, or the summer drop-in programs that used to, because I used to go to the same one at Alexander Cage in the back of the building. There's a basket of balls, 2-yard chalk, and some weird game that you knock the ball through this wood thing with a stick. I don't know, but it kept me busy all summer, for a couple of hours a day. So, yeah, there's other nonprofits that are doing great things also that we have to be aware of that I think would fit underneath this person's umbrella if we were to bring them online to really entrench in that community to make sure we're not overlapping.
Coordinating that.
Yes, coordinate, good word.
Or it's like, hey, what's the Y doing? Are you guys not doing this or doing that? Because essentially the recreation department was eliminated because it was losing the city, it was a $306,000 a year loss. That's why. So that's why it was cut initially. And, you know, and so we get into the recreation business, then we get into the staffing business and the benefit business and the legacy cost business. And I don't know if I'm that thrilled with that. But again, it's one of those things where if the Y or the schools are lacking something that we can provide, I mean, we can fill that hole, but that'd be something that, you know, if we do decide to go this route, they can explore. But back then, they didn't, you know, that department didn't want to raise rates on non-city residents or city residents for that matter. And so it essentially cost the city over $250,000. But I think it's one of those things where you can kind of use money and run like a business, but stuff like that stuff, it's like, you know, you're gonna lose money on recreational things for your community. So yeah, I mean, they can definitely play off each other, you know, the other entities in the city, so.
I had a conversation with the guy just last week along these same lines, and I was saying that I really think it's time that we, you know, establish ourselves with a recreation department. But I was saying basically what you were saying, that we can't just jump in and do what we did before. We have to just look at everything with new eyes and not try to duplicate what we did 15 years ago or whatever.
But what's fun about this is that, and Lad can attest, when we first got on, that's why the Bowling Pool says, because we balanced the budget by doing zero capital, ever. Our first 2 or 3 years at least, we didn't do anything. And so this is the fun time to be the commissioners, where we can actually do some fun stuff, get everything right-sized, and then provide better service and things for our citizens, so.
I think if we get the parks to a point where they are, not that they're bad, but that they're really good, really, really good again, the recreation part is going to come after that. And I think, like Greg said, we just need someone to coordinate with the Y in the schools. It's not so much that we are going to have to hire someone or do the work. We need to know what they're doing, and we need to know that it's being promoted to all city residents. And like you said, Alan, to combine what we think the city residents would want with what they are already planning. Maybe we do pickleball events for the seniors or for people that aren't in school. Well, that's not probably going to come from our school system. I don't know, it'll come from the Y, but that's something that could come from the city. So if we all combine together, there has to be that person in charge.
And I just think that, you know, when it comes to the parks, or I like through a lot of the parks or walk through them, and I've had complaints about equipment that's dangerous. And I mean, Matt just can't be all these places all these times. I feel bad when I have to call him and say there's a really bad piece of equipment at this playground. Some kids almost got hurt, and I hate to do that because he just can't do that and do everything else. Like, you know, and it would be nice to have that person dedicated, that they're checking the playgrounds, they're checking the parks, they're looking at those broken railroad ties at Trestle Park, or they're looking at a lamp post that got knocked over, you know, whatever it might be, so that, you know, so that it shows that we have pride in our parks, and, you know, we can instill that in our residents. You know, I know a resident that was just out picking weeds at Comstock this past week, she couldn't stand looking at it, and went out by herself and just started picking weeds. I found out later I would have helped her if I'd known, but, you know, it's just, you know, I think we really need that person dedicated to really instill that pride. And I agree, you know, Mary, about like, it's the coordination, but it's the communication part too, because there are programs and there are sports and there are, you know, different recreation activities that are out there that not everybody knows about. Maybe their child doesn't go to Adrian Public Schools, you know, they can't afford the Y, or they, you know, whatever it might be, they just don't know. And if the city is the one coordinating those recreation activities and communicating it, not necessarily running it, but making sure that communication's out there so all the residents know what's available and if there's a cost or not, and, you know, and trying to make all of that available to all our city residents so that it's not just the ones that can afford to be in those recreational activities, that we are offering recreational activities, you know, somehow overseeing or trying to get those nonprofits to come together to, you know, like, so that that communication piece is there in one central house, so that everybody is knowing what the left arm knows what the right arm's doing, and the citizens are also aware.
I do think it's important to say Matt has done a fantastic job juggling more than most people.
Oh, yes.
And the cause of the weeds is not Matt's issue, it's
Exactly.
more like a national issue with hiring right now. We
Right.
can't hire enough people to take care of the parks.
Right.
So that is not a Matt issue, that is a national issue with, we've talked about it, like hiring people is just, it's not happening right now. It's very difficult. So I think it's important that we don't make it that issue with Matt. Matt's done a fantastic job juggling more than most people can, so.
It would always amaze me, and here with you when Todd was here, because Matt simplified it, but his budget, capital budget was insane, line by line, and it would take literally an hour. Like, I always dreaded it, because it literally was like line by line. I mean, it was just amazing the amount of things that he's responsible, that he and Matt now is responsible for. I think Commissioner Roberts said it best about leadership in that department. Somebody's gonna come in, crack the whip, and get it going. And, you know, and when they wake up, they think about the parks, and they leave and think about the parks. That's important to me.
I agree with a whole lot of things that were being said, and particularly Commissioner Strayer saying that, you know, we need to make sure that we have integrated programs. We've got, again, Commissioner Watson's particularly said, there are a whole lot of those, you know, nonprofits out there that we can take advantage of. And I don't mean advantage in a bad way. I mean, we can complement the services of a whole lot of community assets if we can do that. I have a question, and it's not meant in a bad word, but and maybe it's for you, Mr. Elliott. First of all, are we staffed, the city hall staffed, or the city staffed to the maximum of the headcount authorized currently, or are we short?
Certainly not. I mean, we're
Okay.
well below.
And the reason I bring it up, somebody mentioned to me just yesterday that Parks and Forestry were not, they had been cut back to 28 hours a week, and they weren't working full time. So and again, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or otherwise. I just want to know, you know, we're picking on the Parks Department as being the park's not looking great and things like that, which we need to get that up and going. But it just kind of surprised me that might be an issue, and I don't know.
Well, so it's 29 hours, and that's a reference to how long we can hire part-time people under the Affordable Care Act without having to offer them health insurance. And we call them seasonals, but they're not really seasonal. So seasonal is really someone who works less than 6 months. And our season for parks is April through September, and that's more than 6 months.
Right.
Therefore, those that we hire or have historically hired in that role are limited by the 29 hours. If you were sticking within 6 months, you can work those kind of people who are actual seasonal longer. You can work them full-time without having to offer health insurance. I mean, the problem this year is that we were not able to hire those so-called seasonal people to the degree that we normally do. Normally, we have quite a few out there doing the maintenance on the parks. This year, I think we might be up to 5 now versus how many in a typical year?
We usually get about 10.
Yeah, so half as many to do the work. And what we've done is, and we met about it again this morning, is shifted to contractors to do more of simple things like mowing and weed application. And we're getting our guys to focus and gals to focus on what's called horticultural maintenance, you know, the pruning, the weeding, you know, mulching, you know, storing plant beds, those kind of things.
I appreciate that explanation. Now I have something to tell people when they ask, and I mean, they hit you with, you know, Citizens said hit you with out of the clear blue sky. and ask a question you have no idea for. So thank you, I appreciate it.
But to your point, and it's important to realize as part of this discussion that, no, we don't have as many people in the Parks Department generally, including laborers, as we had back in the day when it was fully staffed. That is a smaller number of people as well. But I don't think you start by adding laborers. I think you start by adding direction.
I agree wholeheartedly, and then let's let the director come to us with their needs and talk to us about, here's the problem, here's my solution for fixing the problem, and then we move forward from there. That's great. Thanks again.
Anything else on that? If not, I'll try to move forward on an action item. Maybe next time. Well, next time's only a week away, but in August, so that we could start working on that. Item number 2 is bowling pool discussion. So, as we've talked about, we have not had a capital plan for bowling pool, although it was looked at back in 2014 in terms of the cost of refurbishment, and I shared that analysis that was done back then a while back, but as we thought about it and we went through this year's drama in terms of getting the pool open, it occurs to us that maybe the opportunity really is to study replacing the pool sort of in parallel so that we don't lose a season or maybe even 2 seasons of the pool while the refurbishment would be going on. Instead, build something. Probably also wants to be in Riverside. That seems like the most likely location for it, but honestly, where the pool is right now is not the optimal location. It's down in the water table and it has to have a reverse drain in it so that the groundwater can come up when it's empty, so it doesn't lift the pool out of the ground. What I put in your packet was just a very rough draft of an RFQ. We were used to doing RFPs, but this would be seeking a consultant to actually do the study as described there and to determine what that should be. I purposely did not limit it to necessarily a replacement. I also purposely did not limit it to necessarily an outdoor pool. Someone was in my office when I was working on it and said, well, wouldn't it be great, the college doesn't have a pool. Wouldn't it be great if somehow we could partner with the college and have an actual aquatic center that everybody could use and they would have some buy-in in terms of what we build, and that would be great. And so I tried to make as part of the task for the consultant the study of what those partnerships could potentially be and whether or not there's opportunities out there to do that. It's a way to get us moving forward on having a plan for making sure bowling pool is there for the future. Kind of wake up call this year, I would say, in terms of what happened trying to get it done. Again, interested in the commission's thoughts on whether we should move forward with something.
So as I said, this is another one that's near and dear to me. After meeting with Administrator Elliott, he was the one who flipped me to Napoleon to take a look at Napoleon, Ohio, and I provided you guys with that nice email from their aquatics director down there. I've also reached out to Bowling Green, Ohio's aquatics director to see get feedback from them. But very nicely put out timeline that we could definitely use as a blueprint. I think I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I've had, and I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that all kinds of people reaching out to me like, what's the commission doing? Why aren't you guys still opening the pool? Why, what are you thinking? So on and so forth. And I'm like, what? Yeah, you're right. We need to move on this, and this needs to get addressed. Well, it was driven home last week when I drove by Bow Pool in the mid-afternoon, and I see so many towels slung over so many chairs, kids everywhere, people everywhere. It's like the city absolutely needs this, and the city deserves something upgraded. I mean, when you look at it, 1972, Bone Pool was built. It's got some miles. She's done us right. We have the opportunity, we have the financial situation where we need to really get after this and dig deep and see what we've got on our hands to make an aquatics facility for us. You know, you look at Napoleon, $4.2 million project funded by a levy on 8,000 people's backs. Got 2.5 times that many people. We've got resources, we've got fund balances, we've got, you know, we're not swimming in our money to use a bad pun right now, but we have funds that we should invest back in our community. And I think the time is right. I would love to see this thing move. If we take it to a ballot, I'd love to see it on a November ballot so we can move quickly. It's much quicker than that timeline to get it to the voters, but I think we can do it. I think that we have enough people interested about it, and unfortunately it took the pool not opening this year to hear some people very interested about it. But I think the community realizes what that asset is in the investment that we should return to our people. The decision time is now, because who knows, next year that might not be as easy as just turning a valve that we missed in the back of the room to make that pool work. So man, if you can't hear it, it is something I'm passionate about. It is something that if it extends past my term, I would be more than happy to continue on in a volunteer role to see that to completion. But I think we absolutely need to do something for the community in terms of an aquatic center.
Let me weigh in on this. I've been thinking about this a lot since you sent out that information, and I agree with you 100%, but I want to complicate the issue. And that is we're talking about Bone Pool because a few years ago, when we partnered with the Y and we had some problems with the pool, we didn't really address it then. Now we've sort of gotten to this point. And I know that Commissioner Watson and Health and we've had conversations in the past about the parks. And if we're going to make a big investment like this in Bone Pool, I think it's the time that we need to make an additional investment in the parks. And when I say the parks, I mean things like restrooms, which Mr. Watson has made fun of me a million times on every time I bring it up, and concessions. I mean, if you look at Heritage Park, we have some really nice softball fields. We have some really nice soccer fields. We have from what I'm told by disc golfers, one of the best disc golf courses around. We have good things going on there, but the concession area is not up to par. Restrooms, well, basically are non-existent. And, you know, we've talked before about how Heritage Park is a great destination for bringing in tournaments and things. But if you don't have these other amenities, people aren't going to come. And when people come from Novi or wherever for a tournament, you have to make a great first impression. I mean, when they pull in, they have to see that the road driving in is paved. They have to see a nice facility that could be concessions or whatever. They have to be able to see or utilize clean restrooms. There has to be some walking paths and things. I mean, I will say this. I have run into numerous people that come to Heritage Park from other areas, Toledo being one, to bike and hike on our trails out there. And our trails at Heritage Park are in some spots are rugged, but that's what people want. But I'm talking about other walking trails and things. So, you know, a lot of people in Adrian, we've convinced ourselves over the years that we have these great parks. Well, we have a lot of land for parks, but they're not great. Now, I go down to Toledo Metro Parks a lot. I go up to Kensington Metro Park. They're great parks, okay? And we can be there if we just, take this whole pool concept and bring it in and bring the parks in there. And I've thought about this a lot, and I've thought, some people can say, well, if you do that, now you make the project too big and it'll never pass. Or you might say, well, let's just do the pool right now and let's come back and look at the parks later. If you do that, then some people are gonna say, hey, 2 years ago, you wanted money for the pool, and now you're coming back and you want more money. So there's different schools of thought, but I think that it's worthy of discussion on what approach that we should take. If people want to take that approach at all.
I think you got a very good point. And if you want to match my efforts in figuring that component out, go for it, because I think it is a right idea to go to people once and be like, hey man, we need 10 million bucks. But here's what you're getting for it. I can't just go to somebody and say, I need 10 million bucks and we're gonna do something cool. That's not gonna sell. But if it's a, if we really think about it and it's a whatever, a quality of life approach to citizens, I think we can do it, but we've got to get it nailed down.
And that was one question I had. Robin, do you know, when do we have to, if we were trying to put it on a ballot, when does that have to be submitted by?
Open the dates.
'Cause I think it's pretty soon for the November,
Maybe John knows.
like very soon. John, do you know?
I don't right offhand, Madam Mayor, but I can check.
Because I don't want to sit and wait another year. That's what I was worried about. That's why I was asking that. That's why I've already been thinking about that. And I don't want to call a special election. I mean, just for that, because that also costs, but maybe that's what we'd have to do.
Oh, that tastes to me as well.
I like the idea of an overall parks end goal, but I'd also like to take a look at what private grants, state grants, federal grants are out there. I mean, you look at what's supposedly happening in Tecumseh with quite a sizable grant. I don't recall if it's from the state of Michigan, but to build that recreation center. There's gotta be money out there. If they're able to secure that, then why can't we? So I don't know that.
Which is great, because I think a lot of money is tied to a master plan for parks, and we don't have one right now. So Parks Director would.
Yeah, I know it's something we want this right now. We all want it right now. We want to just click our heels and have it done. But I don't want to miss the boat on free money by just putting it out there for a tax vote. I just gotta believe there's something out there that we can get.
Well, in fact, there's more than there used to be. The governor has devoted some of the rescue plan funds to local parks, as I understand it. But the key to that is having a Parks and Rec master plan. It's a 5-year plan. We haven't had one in a long time.
5 years, didn't the last one expire?
Well, which means the last one was done 10 years ago. And I think it's even more than 5 years ago that it expired. And so the funding cycle for that, we've missed this calendar year, but the deadline to have it filed so that you're eligible for next year is February 28th of next year. That's when we have to submit Parks and Rec plans. So we want to be sure that we don't miss that one and that that's available for us.
And that's just state of Michigan.
That's for DNR grants, yeah. Michigan DNR.
Sorry, Commissioner Roberts might be a good time, particularly because she's always local, but bring Brown Colley into the discussion too, because she can be helpful as a city or state rep in helping try to go after some of those funds as well. And I'm going to see her this week, so I'll tell her we need it.
And I know that, we have more than one college who might be interested in an aquatic center. We have many businesses that might be interested in some kind of public-private thing going on.
I'm not overly interested in fundraising for it. I don't think that there's as much momentum around something like this for the city. I think that there's a lot. I've already explored this at certain levels that the private dollars aren't, they're not as excited about something along this line. And I think that I tend to agree that this is something that the city or the voters should have on their table.
Thank you for.
But Lad's got a
Testing
good
the
point about
waters.
about the trails, and obviously I'm not a trail rider, clearly, but I know a lot of people come from way outside the community to come to Adrian to use those trails, so again, let's just be honest here, I mean, the citizens don't want us to be a bank, they want us to provide service. What we have in fund balance compared to what we should have conservatively is a lot more money, right? So they don't want us to hoard the money, they want us to provide services or quality of life amenities, so if it's something like putting the pool on a ballot and then us earmarking a certain amount of dollars to parks or using some oil money, that's another thing we could, but let's tie those two pieces together, but I just don't want to get to the point, and I appreciate the city staff, all hands on deck. Matt, Will, Eric Kelly, I remember Commissioner Watson said, hey, can our utilities guy look at this? And they took the reins on that and, got the pool open, but a pool is a very cheap entertainment that all of our youth love, and I grew up on it. That's how I got started in politics is the perception that pools gonna be closed. So I think they go hand in hand, but it's one of those things where you tell the voters, hey, what kind of community you want to live in? Do you want that kind of cool, new, fresh thing, or you want to keep patching it? And they'll tell us what they want.
I agree 100%, because I think that what we're talking about is spending an awful lot of money, more money than what we have.
Right.
So you have to take it to the people. And so let the people of Adrian tell us what exactly they want.
And Commissioner Watson said it, it's not like we're getting the state or national politics, that, hey, we're gonna raise the gas tax, it's gonna pay for this, and it never does, right? This is what's gonna go for. That's what you're paying for. That millage increase, or whatever the levy is gonna go for that particular project.
And
And they'll tell us they want it or not.
Robin, just verified, it's August 10th at 4 p.m.
Yes.
By 4 p.m. So, but you've got, like we just talked about, we're looking at this Parks and Recreation Director, we get this master plan, we see what grant money, because it's true, Tecumseh Commissioner Roberts said that, there's other places with master plans, very capitalizing on this money that's out there, and especially now that there's been more money from, the governor towards parks, and, maybe this is something we can get that plan developed. We can be out there talking so that come the next election, we're ready to go and we actually know, like, can we get so much in money? Like, how much are we going to be asking for? And we can just have a much clearer picture for everyone that's looking, because I'm just afraid, August 10th, that's going to be a very, that scares me. So
It's impossible.
And that's what I was worried about when when I was looking at this, I'm just like, oh, I think that's soon, because I remember you have to be quite a few months ahead of that election, but I still think it's great that we also discussed tonight the Parks and Recreation, department head, we have that person that we're talking about now. That's what we need. We need this master plan. We need this moving forward, and that will help us get the communication out and figure out what we really need and what we for money and what we maybe need in general, just from that person's perspective and presenting to us and those discussions moving forward.
We have quite a bit in fund balance. I know other cities are putting out there to bond, get a certain amount, and interest rates are incredibly low right now. So we don't maybe have to use all of the fund balance up front, but we bond it for 10, 20 years and can use our fund balance for the pool, and maybe then we go to the voters for an overall parks review. Just throwing that out there as something, as another option.
Well, if it went to the voters, it would be a bond. It would be bonded. As a body, we could authorize if we wanted to use fund balance for millions of dollars. We wanted to.
We can't levy a tax increase.
Correct. Yeah, so we would have to, if it were on the ballot, it would be bonded. And right now, in financial terms, it's silly, free, cheap money right now.
Right.
Yeah. So if we're gonna take debt, cheap debt, without jeopardizing our financial position.
Mr. Elliott, how long would it take to do the parks plan? And I'm thinking the land use plan and how long that's
Yeah,
taken.
I mean, it could be, well, for perspective, when I was a consultant, I did the city of Southfield's parks plan. We started just before Christmas and we finished it by February 28th. I think we filed it on February 28th, but
That's
it's about a
quick.
3-month job.
I mean, I would thought.
You'd like a little more time for public engagement, we
Right.
kind of had to compress that, but it's doable in a short period of time. Our goal is to have that done regardless of whether we have parks director or not. We're going to file a parks plan by February 28th.
So what's our next move?
I mean, I work really closely with Commissioner Strayer if he wants to grab and start kicking around ideas in terms on the park side. But I would like to have the decision made before my time is up in November of whether or not it's going to make the ballot in some capacity. I'm going to continue down my research. Like I said, I hope to make it to Napoleon very soon, as well as coordinate with Bowling Green since it's kind of, I can make a loop out of that.
So the current RFQ that Australia's put together, should we go forward with that just based on the pool? And then we look at one that's based on all the other parts of our parks? Is that a plan?
I would think they're two separate
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yep.
So the pool
areas of
one-
expertise, but I don't know what's out in that field. Do you have any feel for that, Greg?
Well, obviously, I wrote it to be specific to the
Correct.
pool, not anticipating the other discussion. My observation would be like a more global analysis of our parks needs is out of sequence with hiring a new director. Now we're, it's Matt and I trying to find time to also evaluate all our parks facilities, come up with a scheme for upgrading them. Although some of that is in our capital budget. The concession stand, for example, has been in there. I think we nixed it this year in favor of other items, but to me, a realistic date to shoot for a ballot proposal would be next November. Do the analysis. We get the consultant's recommendations. We hire a Parks and Rec director. We come up with a program and understand what it is exactly that we're asking for, and we have time for a public education effort so people understand what exactly we're asking for. That seems like a realistic time horizon.
I think we have time to get the specs down before November, get what we want at the table, get a resolution adopted, even though it's a year down the road, get a resolution adopted with this current body, because again, this is gonna be our decision, and then that could be the rubber stamp on, my kid, hey, Dad was a part of that decision-making process, so, yeah. Obviously, that's not gonna work. But
So is the thought that, or what do we need to do to authorize the hiring of a new director that could then be a part of the planning, the whole process, the whole parks process, the whole.
It sure seems like this would be an exciting time to be a parks director in Adrian. If you got a commission that's all nodding their head in terms of millions of dollars of investments, I mean,
So what would
that
you
sure
need?
seems.
What would you need from us to get you a parks director?
Well, I wasn't here when you authorized creating the community development director again. Does anybody recall what exactly you did? I assume you passed a resolution.
it was quick.
It was really quick. I mean, as Nathan read the charter and was like, hey, we need to talk to each one of us and said, this is missing from our structure. And then it went quick and then you were approved.
So,
I mean, I could certainly put an ad out and we can start taking resumes. Obviously, we can't hire any department head until commission confirms them. So if you're satisfied with that process.
But you don't need some authorization from us
Well,
to
it's in the
even try to
city,
do the hire.
yeah, it's in the city code. you
Yeah, and
know,
it hasn't been
it's-
deactivated.
It hasn't been deactivated, and so, now it's not in our budget, obviously, for this year, so at the point where we're ready to pull the trigger on it, we both have to do a budget amendment.
Right.
And then you would have to approve the hire, but we don't have to have a budget amendment done to go out.
Because I'm start searching.
So if you're comfortable with that, I can start that. search.
I'm
So
comfortable
very
with that, but that's only me.
Mhm.
You too.
But
Yes.
again, do we have to have that person in place before we put out that RFQ for the pool?
No,
That's what I want to be
No.
clear on, because I don't think we do, but I just want to be sure that we're all on the same page.
and again,
That these things are going to happen at the same time.
yeah, I mean, there's no reason they can't happen at the same time, and you're not committed to anything by putting an RFQ out either. You're gonna review the responses that we get, and you're gonna make
One thing in that RFQ, as it was presented, it says to bring a recommendation back to the Parks and Rec Board. It's on like the last line of the last bullet
I
point.
see it, that's we just put all the rubbish in the consulting business,
Is it-
left over from the prior version. Right, well, if you're comfortable with both those items, we'll move forward with them administratively.
Let's get rolling, man.
I'll put it right back to you. All I had on those two, Mayor, the third item was one that you requested we add.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have time today, being that we have 7 minutes and we still have to do public comment. So, I think we'll have to, put that off till a week from today on Monday's pre-meeting.
Okay.
So can we just start off the next pre-meeting with that to make sure and ensure that it gets done,
Sure.
okay? And I will communicate with, the person that was wanting to present on that,
Okay.
about that change, okay?
Okay, yep.
All right, so at this time, we're going to do public comment. Just to reiterate, please state your name and address.
Joaquin Ramos, or 22 South Winter. Gordon, can you hear me all right from here?
I can.
Wonderful. So my main thought is with this whole pool thing, I definitely encourage you to make a second pool and fix up the old one. But I do question why put them both in Riverside? Is there no other place it's possible for a pool? Because yes, the whole city can in theory get there, but also not all the city can get there due to where it is, due to transportation. Would it serve the community better, being perhaps having a pool in two different parks? Of course, right now, one of them will end up being closed once one's big, blah, blah, but would it be better to need to have them a little bit further away from each other so that they're more accessible? Just some thoughts.
Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned and the regular meeting will begin in 5 minutes. I would help if I had the microphone on. I call to order the Adrian City Commission special meeting for July 26, 2021. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Hou,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
all commission members present.
May I get a motion to approve the minutes of the July 6, 2021 regular meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
minutes approved by unanimous vote.
May I get a motion to pay the vouchers as presented?
Move to pay the vouchers as presented.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
vouchers approved by unanimous vote.
On ordinances, ordinance number 21-007 is a second reading and consideration of an ordinance to amend the City of Adrian zoning and development regulations to rezone 623 Frank Street from B2 Community Business District to R4 Single Family Residential District. May I get a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move we adopt the ordinance.
Support.
At this time, if there is any public comment on this ordinance, we will take that. And please, for the record, please state your name and address. Hearing no public comment, are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
ordinance approved by unanimous vote.
Ordinance number 21-008 is the first reading and introduction of an ordinance to amend the City of Adrian zoning and development regulations. Article 12, Section 12.02, Article 13, Section 13.2, Article 14, Section 14.2, Article 15, that section does not match that, by the way, Mr. Elliott, on Article 15. Right there, do you see it? Section 1502, Article 16, Section 16.02, Article 17, Section 17.1, Article 18, Section 18.1, Article 19, Section 19.02, Article 20, Section 20.02, Article 21, Section 21.02, and Article 4, Section 4.84, to allow the accessory parking of mobile food vending units. This is a first reading only. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution R21-139 is from administration. It is a resolution to approve amended commission rules and procedures. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-140 is from administration. It is a resolution to approve the purchase of extensions for the Comstock Christmas artificial tree. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution, Gauss.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-141 is from the police. It is a resolution to approve application for an SRT BWC grant for the Adrian Police Department. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Support. Support.
Are there any public comments?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It's good to be meeting in person again. The acronym there is Rural and Tribal Agency Body Worn Camera. It's a micro grant to either create or expand existing body worn camera programs. As we talked about in our capital budgeting process, we're looking to expand our program to move to a cloud-based system. This grant opportunity came up and I'm seeking your approval to apply for that. I am at this moment unclear on just how much we would qualify for. Part of the application says it's 2,000 per camera per officer. So that would indicate we would be available up to 66,000 in grant funding. However, I don't know if they look at the total project cost over time. As you see, the estimate that I have is a 5-year program. So I don't know if they look at the implementation, that initial purchase of the cameras, or if they're looking at the program as a whole. If they're looking at just the first year cost, that was estimated at 73,000. So half of that would obviously be less than the 66. So somewhere in that range is what I anticipate falling in. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Are these the same cameras that we approved in the budget for this year for new body cameras?
No, right now we're using Vivu cameras, which the company has actually been sold a couple of times over. We have our own server, and everything that we have is right here in the station, and we're starting to run into issues with that. We're constantly expanding the amount of video that we have. So we're looking to move to a cloud-based system and a different supplier. So at the moment, I had the estimate from fall, and I'm waiting on another one from a company called Safe Fleet, and then also another one from Motorola. So hopefully when the grant comes around, I'll have 3 for us to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-142 is from Parks and Engineering. It is a resolution to award a bid for the purchase of motor oil and grease. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-143 is from Parks and Engineering. It is a resolution to award a bid for the completion of the Michigan Avenue project.
May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to approve the resolution, Gauss.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-144 is from Finance. It is a resolution to authorize the Finance Department to amend the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget in accordance with the City of Adrian fiscal year 2020-2021 fourth quarter recommended budget amendments. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Watson. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-145 is from administration. It is a resolution to not recommend approval of a Class C liquor license for Bob Evans at 1417 South Main Street, Adrian, Michigan. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Commissioners, you have miscellaneous reports in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on those? Moving on, it is now time for public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Ted White. My address is 2260 Taylor Road, which is Madison Township. Though I do have property in Adrian. So I'm not sure whether this is appropriate for me to be, I don't know what the protocol is.
Okay.
Okay, so my comment is about Trestle Park, the amphitheater, the park in general. We've had a couple of events there and the park is in such ill repair. And I'm just curious as to how it's gotten that way and why, or if maybe there is something that we have already planned that's going to be done about, about the condition of the park. In my opinion, it's a nice venue. As somebody who considers himself a musician, I think that it definitely is part of how, if Adrian plans on bringing good musicians here, that we should keep the park in good condition. And I think that's part of how Adrian is moving in a different direction and or growing or and I just would like to make some suggestions about the park. I think that the amphitheater itself, the stage itself could use a paint job, and there's, maybe we get Adrian College or Siena Heights College to, their art students to come in and do a music themed mural on the stage or something, but I would just like to see, or I'm just curious about whether there's money available for the repair of that park.
And Teddy, we're not allowed to respond to you right now, but someone may in commissioner comments, but we're not allowed to respond to public comment.
All right, thank you.
Greg Adams, 204 North Mackenzie. I just like to echo what he said. I had run through a Kiwanis Trail into the park, and it's not what I remember it to be when I was younger. And we never tried to talk about the race, the E-race. It's September 26th. We usually have it in May, but because of the pandemic, we couldn't pull it off. And we did a virtual race last year, which was successful, but we could have done a race in May this year, but I don't think we had enough time to pull it off. And we weren't sure what was going on with the pandemic, so we just pushed it up to September. So we're looking at September 26th. I'm thankful to all of you and the city. I look at all of you, and most of you have been involved with the race somehow. I know Commissioner Strayer's been every race. I look at Commissioner Gauss, he's donated the race this year, the sponsor. Mayor Heath is involved with helping Siena Heights students. Ellen's provided us donuts and coffee, and Mary's involved too with the committee. And I think we're getting a cabinet involved this year too. So I mean, I look at all of you through 6 years, or this will be our 8th year, I think. To see all get involved with our project is really touching, on top of what the city does themselves with providing us all these services and tables and police. Thank you. I mean, investing in us in our first year, we only had a couple hundred people to keep on coming back to us. It means a lot to us and our community. I think last year we were on pace for 1,000 people until the pandemic hit. So I think we're going to be hopefully up there again this year. I know just last week, Adrian College synchronized skating and ice team is coming to the race. They're bringing 70 people, 70 students. So I guess being in the fall, we'll be able to attract more college kids. That might be a better benefit. Thank you.
Hello, Keen Ramos, of course, 422 South Winter. I'm sure you're aware of that already. So, of course, I'll be mentioning this again next week, but I'm letting you all know now, and again, next week, that second Friday will be in Dunlap Park, and that I, as the chair of A3, invite you to come and see our second Friday event. So I hope to see some of you there, and I will be reminding you next week.
Hearing no more public comment, are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Roberts?
So I had a quick conversation with Mr. Adams before we started tonight. And as someone who listens in on these meetings regularly from home, he mentioned to me how nice this room looks. We talked about it being professional and well done, and that the sound, if I understood you correctly, the sound from home is much improved. So I just thought I should relay that you did a good job with taxpayer money.
I have a couple of comments.
Commissioner Gauss?
First of all, the mayor was correct. Teddy, I want to pass on some information. Nothing very specific, but I can tell you, we just came out of a pre-meeting and you would have heard us talking a lot about park maintenance, all the parks, not just Trestle Park, but Riverside Park, Island Park. So we're going to pay particular attention in the upcoming months to try to make improvements on those parks. Again, specifically Trestle. So that's a commissioner talking back to you that we're not usually allowed to do. The other comment I'd like to make is about Mr. Adams and the really hard work that he puts into this community. He's got a full-time job, but when he's not working, he's working on the race. And I know Commissioner Roberts participates with the Community Mental Health Group in planning and running the race. But nobody is more dedicated to an event or some kind of operation within the city of Adrian than Greg Adams. And I'm proud to call him my friend. I'm glad to be able to support the race in any way that I can. He's reached out this year to a number of different companies with a great idea of getting those companies to put together teams, 5, 8, 10 person teams to walk the race, run the race. Because looking at me, I'm not running very far. So, that when I kidded him the other day, I said, I'm going to pull a Rosie Ruiz on him and I'll be dropping out about Frosty Boy. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge the hard work that he does, the work that he's done in the past and continues to do. And if you have an opportunity or have an idea to help him find additional sponsors or teams for this event, I urge you to get a hold of him directly. I promise you, he will follow up on those almost to the point of nagging and we'll get him more runners that he could possibly handle. But thank you, Mayor.
Hearing no more commissioner comments, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So move. Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Watson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.